Good morning, everyone. Today I'm here with Casey. Today we're going to share about our Penn Nursing experience. So just to kind of jump right into it, to define what being a nurse is, I think the way I like to think about it is like the doctor is the one who kind of like leads the plan of care for a sick person, for a patient. I would say like they assign whatever procedures need to be done. Often they're the ones in surgery, but nurses are the ones who carry out the day-to-day procedures for the patient. Yeah, like when you're sick in the hospital, your doctor will visit you maybe once or twice a day, and your nurse is the one who stays with you the entire time. So I like to think of it as like medicine is like, or being a doctor is about the science, and being a nurse is about like the person. Yeah. So I think that's a clear way to kind of distinguish it. But first we'll introduce ourselves. So my name is Lillian, I'm from San Jose, California. And the reason I wanted to do nursing was because I did want to be in healthcare, but I didn't feel like I could commit to the path of being a doctor. I also honestly did not feel smart enough to pursue all that science and like take all those classes. So being in nursing was just a really great medium because I also got to pursue other passions as well. One of them being business, whereas I feel like medicine was like very restrictive. What about you?
So I'm from Southern California, and I think I ruled out medicine for similar reasons. I didn't think that I wanted to devote that much of my life to school, or like I knew that what I enjoyed and my strengths did not lend to being in a library and being in front of textbooks. And then on the flip side, I knew that my strengths did lie in like working with people, I guess. Like I feel like I worked a customer service job in high school, and like I surprisingly really liked it. Like I feel like I liked customer service. I think it's like really fun, it's exciting, like it keeps you on your toes. And I think obviously like patient care is a little bit different, but I think it's a little bit similar in that you get to interact with all different personality types. You get
a lot of personalities.
Yeah, you get to see people, or like patients at their best and at their worst. And I think the extra part about nursing that I really like is just the opportunity to care for people in their like most vulnerable states. Like even if not most physically vulnerable, like when they're like decompensating whatever that the doctor might see, like emotionally or like whatever, like just everything else that comes with being in the hospital or like being sick, you get to care for them and their family, which I think is really unique.
Yeah, so it's like a general overview of Penn Nursing. It's a 4-year undergraduate BSN program, so you graduate with a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, then you take the Nclex, and then you're a registered RN. And then like all the job potentials are there. So one thing I really liked about nursing is you can get it all done in undergrad and like start working, and there's no more extra schooling you have to do to be a registered nurse. Okay, so for a general curriculum, so you have your foundational courses, which are like your basic science courses. So it's like bio, chem, and then it jumps into like the nursing related ones, anatomy and physiology and pharmacology. And once you complete all of those, then your clinicals begin. So the clinicals are OB, med-surg, geriatrics, psych, peds, community, and leadership. So there's 6 or 7 total clinical rotations that you go through throughout the year. And once you start doing these clinical courses, there are all 3 components to everything. You go to lecture.
Even like, anatomy starts with 3.
Yeah, even anatomy. So you go to lecture. Lecture is like what? Like it's either 3 to 6 hours a week. It depends, like depending on which level you're at. Then you have A&P lab, or you have like simulation lab.
It's like role play.
Role play, yeah. There's like a dummy person there, you know, and it's like, okay, like how would you introduce yourself to the patient? What test would you do? You have your instructor speaking to you through like a window, giving you instructions. And then the last part is actual like clinical, like you in the hospital, following a nurse or helping a nurse out. So there are 3 components to every class. So like the units definitely add up. And then there's also a language requirement and electives. So it's pretty busy throughout the 4 years, but there are no nursing students who can like graduate early because of like the rigorous course schedule compared to other schools. How did you feel overall like with the classes in nursing? Do you feel like it was like taught well?
I think it's hard to say because I think a big bulk of like the content we learned was over COVID. Like this semester I realized that I wish I had paid attention a lot more in pharm and like learned a lot more in pharm because I was in the ED and for clinical, and you just see so many types of medications pass through because every patient is so different, and a ton of meds. I found myself being like, oh, it sounds familiar, but I don't know what it does. So I wish I wish I had paid attention more in pharm, I guess, but at the same time I feel like I have to like give myself a little bit of leeway because it's like it was on like online, and I feel like we all tried the best we could given COVID. And the same with like med surg, like even though clinical was in person, lecture was still all online, and like for a lot of like the diseases and like patho and stuff like that, I like know the bare minimum, but like nothing advanced. So I think it's hard to say. I think sometimes I feel like the professors are experts in their own study, and like they've done years and years of research, and they like have PhDs in the topic, and they've worked as nurses regarding the topic for a really long time. But I think their ability to lecture and teach and connect with students does not translate over. I think some of my favorite classes have not been those like core nursing classes. Like they've maybe been like a nursing like elective. Classes not in the school of nursing.
Yeah, I would say like the Penn Nursing program is so well run that the same professors teach like the classes year after year. So like they definitely like
it's either the same year after year or like switch every semester.
Yeah, but like for the solid nursing classes like pharm and NP, they have a very like thorough way to teach that they've tested and say like, oh, it works. But I think my biggest takeaway is like it's so much self-study. Like they'll give you the material, but like you have to memorize it like on your own. So I think my biggest thing with nursing compared to other like colleges or like it's like I feel like we study a lot, especially freshman sophomore year. Like
there's no homework.
Yeah.
You don't.
But it's frequent tests.
Problem sets, or like you don't have weekly assignments, but you just have like tests.
Yeah.
Every week.
Like for anatomy and physiology, we would have 4 midterms for lecture, and then 4 lab exams, and then 4 like clinical test outs. So it's like 12 things going on all at once. So I think it's very like time intensive studying. Not necessarily difficult, but it really prevents you from like, I don't know, going out on Monday and Wednesday nights.
You can't cram.
How do you think it will prepare you for like the Nclex, even though we haven't taken it yet?
I've heard it does not. I've heard that the Nclex is still a lot of self-studying, and I've heard that even after you take the Nclex, before you start work, the majority of your learning will still be on the job.
Yeah.
Which I suppose you can't really blame Penn Nursing for, because nursing is so much.
Yeah.
Like you can't really expect it to be taught in 4 years. But that thought does scare me a little.
Yeah. Curriculum wise, like, do you feel a difference? I don't know, compared to your other nursing friends, like, do you really feel like Penn like prepared us a lot more, or do you feel like overall like
I don't know nursing people at other schools.
Okay.
I think I have to say yes, just by the sheer hours we have in clinical.
Yeah.
I don't know any other school that has this many hours of clinical, so I like to think that like hopefully by like giving so much of our life away to clinical, like we're gaining some type of preparation from it.
Yeah, like so for our last semester we had leadership, so you kind of choose where you're at, and it was 2 12s on Tuesday and Thursdays. And I would talk to like other nursing students, and nobody has a 12 or like 2 12s, you know, per
week. They have like 1 12 every other week or something like that.
So I think Penn can definitely boast about their clinical hours, as well as like access to a lot of local hospitals. But I think one part that, I don't know how it is at other schools, but like there are like weekend clinicals, you know, so it can take away, you know, basically your entire social life if you so choose to do that path. Yeah. And then one thing that I personally felt was like I felt like there are limited resources in Penn Nursing for all that they boast about. Like I think for me, I wasn't able to get the clinical site I wanted, but even for other people, like they had to drive far to clinical sites to like different states, you know, and like pay those costs themselves. And in general, I think honestly, if you're a low income student, there are a lot of things you have to pay for, especially when you begin beyond textbooks. I remember like scrubs, stethoscopes. They told us to buy this white lab jacket that like I've never worn in my life. You know, so there's a lot of just like unanticipated costs that aren't necessarily covered.
Well, the costs they say that your financial package, your financial aid package is supposed to cover, like, I remember bringing this up with admin because I was really annoyed with it. Because I was like, you can't just expect people to drop $100 on scrubs, $150 on stethoscope, and then like carry on. But apparently, the school gives the financial aid office like an itemized list of how much scrubs cost, how much whatever cost, so that it can be part of your package. But that's not very common knowledge, and I don't think it's very comforting to people. And then I think the transportation thing is really interesting because I spent over $100 on transportation this semester just from septaing, but then like people at Drexel have to go way further. Like, you have to wake up at 4 to get there by 6.
Yeah.
And theirs is not covered either. But then they're back by like 3 p.m. So
I
don't know. But yeah, I feel like schools across the board just need to do better about that. Especially if people don't have cars. Like, you can just expect that.
Yeah. I do think though the reason Penn can have such a large nursing class compared to like, you know, like the UCs is like 40 to 80 people per class is because there's so many hospitals close by that have clinical spots for us. So as much as transportation sucks, I would do research and see, because I do think Penn has just more access to like local hospitals, which can be a beneficial thing.
I mean, not everyone has to transport in a car, right? Or like in a vehicle. Like, there are many people who just walk like 20 minutes.
Next topic is career preparation. So I think one thing I noticed, I don't know if you did, it's like when you come in as a freshman, the first thing they tell you, they're like, you know, the CEO of the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania used to be a nurse. They really push like leadership and like masters and like getting your PhDs. But how do you feel like, like Penn prepared you overall, you know, for a long-term career as a nurse, especially coming from California?
I feel like it does prepare you well, or at least I would like to think it. I hope it will. I think that it really annoyed me for a long time how much Penn pushes further education and research and stuff like that. Because I was like, I think in Penn Nursing there's a very much of like a phrase of just a nurse, like just a bedside nurse, and that really bothered me for a really long time, because it's not just anything. Like, if someone's decided to do that, like, good for them, you know, like, just because they decided to do that over a PhD does not mean that what they're doing is any lesser. And that like really bothered me about Penn Nursing, because like, this is our 4 years of undergrad. Like, are you just gonna like essentially tell us to like do the bare minimum of this so that we can go do master's or PhD? But I think that being said, like, the focus on like higher like education and stuff like that does lend well to leadership. And I don't know, part of me doesn't want to admit it, but I feel like Penn nurses are well positioned to take on leadership positions, and like eventually I feel like if they do decide to pursue other career paths besides, or other positions besides bedside nursing, I feel like not like management, but like our entire leadership class this semester was not on nursing. It was on like management and like people skills, and I don't know if other schools have that, but I feel like having an entire semester dedicated to it and such a priority of it in the curriculum lends itself to preparing people well.
Like, I honestly don't think there's any major like leg up that Penn gives. I realize with nursing, like, location really matters, because what happens is you'll do clinicals at hospitals, maybe you'll work like an externship or work as a CNA in hospitals, and that's where you'll get your offer, you know, or like build your connections. So if you are based in like the Philly or like East Coast area, like, it can be a really good starting point, you know, to begin your career. But I think for me, I realized, like, going back to California, I'm scared, you know, to apply, because there's just so many local schools in California that have students who directly feed into those hospitals. And I think at the end of the day, like, an Nclex and an RN license is just that. You know, I don't want to say that other nurses from other schools are like incompetent, because that's not true at all. You know, you learn what you need to learn on the job. So yeah, I would say if you really want to do higher education leadership, like, Penn has a lot of direct like entry programs, you know, or resources to get involved in research and things like that. Okay, nursing extracurriculars. So I think just some examples are some students do research with professors, or they work at CHOP or at HUP. Those jobs are definitely available if you want them. But then there's a lot of different nursing clubs, which I wasn't really a part of, but Casey can share about that.
So I was in APANSA, Asian Pacific American Nursing Student Association. It is the club for Asian American nurses at Penn. It's grown a lot in the past few years, I think, just as a product of Penn finally starting to admit more nurses of color. There's also Minorities in Nursing Organization, MNO, which like we've collaborated with in past years. I think both groups are really great in providing safe spaces for students at Penn. I feel like it's not really talked about, but nursing is still predominantly a white profession, and I think we see that as students, and I think our patients subconsciously or consciously know that too. Like, when I met a patient who was blind and was like, oh, I want my son to marry a nurse because like white women know how to treat their husbands well, and I was like, oh, I'm not white, like, sorry, I don't know what to tell you. And like, there's just like so many statements like that, or like microaggressions. So I think being in a community like that is really beneficial, I think, not just to like unpack how you're feeling from statements like that, but to go one step deeper and be like, okay, like what are the implications of this, how does it affect the nursing profession? And I think it also allows you to, like, if you choose to take like an executive board position in any of these clubs, for example, I think it also puts you in a spot to like create change, or at least start change within admin.
And I think like the difference is like for Wharton clubs, like those clubs are really, in a sense, to help you network and advance your career. Whereas in nursing, the clubs are just about like building community and feeling a part of it. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Like I love that all we need in nursing is just show up to class, you know, take your test. Like you don't have to do an externship. You don't have to do anything during the summer to become like a successful and hired nurse in the future. So I think the clubs purely exist, you know, to build community, to connect you to one another. Okay, some brief resources I thought that were just like kind of unique to nursing. The nursing cohort is really small. It's like 120 people. So you really get to know your advisors as well as your professors, which just naturally means you can go to them for help if you need it. There's always tutoring available for free for like harder subjects. And I think just being in Philadelphia, like so many hospitals, so many diverse patient populations, you can volunteer in the city if you want. I think it also gives like a clear reality of the good parts and the bad parts of our healthcare system, you know. So I can't compare it to a different area, but I just think it's like, it's very socioeconomically diverse. So I think you just see a lot of different things.
I think one more resource is, I don't think I took advantage of it enough, but I think the professors are quite renowned. And faculty. I don't think either of us took advantage of this, so but I feel like I need to include it because I think if you really wanted to, you can build really good relationships with professors. I think I did it a little bit, but not to like its full capacity. And I think especially if you're interested in research or a specific topic and you find a professor, they're really accessible. You can really get plugged in very quickly and just be a part of their work. And I think that is like a really big draw to Penn and Penn Nursing. And I think even though like some of the professors are like and faculty are really annoying, if you find good ones, they're really approachable, and I think they are a really good resource. I know like that Panza faculty advisor was like a really good resource. I don't think that I'd be like where I am senior spring without him.
Yeah. Okay, community and culture. So I contrast a lot with Wharton, where I like literally no friends there. Whereas in nursing, it's like, it's such a small group and you go through so many things together that you just get close, you know, naturally throughout the 4 years. Like I don't know everyone, but I know their names. You know
their face.
Yeah. But like just it's not toxic. There are no curves. Nobody's trying to cheat. You're all just trying to get through it together. Students are so willing to share materials and help each other out. So I really don't have anything bad to say about the culture of Penn Nursing, other than like it can really be a bubble if you don't, I guess, reach out to the rest of the Penn population. Like you just be with your nursing friends all the time, like in Fagan all the time, and miss out on everything else.
I think you need both, because I think freshman year I really did not want a lot of nursing friends because I was like, it's so small, I'll see these people all the time for the next 4 years. Like I'm sure I'll meet some of them. But now I'm really grateful that I do. At the end of the day, senior spring, the only other people who know what you've gone through are the people in your cohort and like the 100 other students. Because even like if you're really close to someone in the grade below you or something like that, they haven't been through all 4 years of what you've been through. And I think that is like such a sense of like camaraderie and like community that is like so unique.
Yeah. Even living in the house, Dan Dry Sauce like suffering through med-surg, and he's like, oh, I see nursing is hard. Yeah.
And I think it's also helpful to like have non-nursing friends, so that your non-nursing friends get a better understanding of what nursing is. There's so many actually like preconceived inaccurate notions about nursing and nursing school too.
Yeah, like I feel like so many times I'm like, I wish we could just be normal college students with a normal class schedule. We're not like at the hospital all day. Yeah. So I think one thing I was gonna mention, I think you shared it before, like people at Penn have a weird complex if you're not literally like in Wharton, or if you're not doing cis, or like I think people even like they don't understand what nursing is. You know, so when you come here like, oh, I'm nursing, they're like, oh, like what the like.
Yeah. They're either like, oh my gosh, so great, like you're such a nice person, like so noble, or they're like, why the heck would you come to Penn for nursing?
Yeah.
And so that was like really hard for me to navigate, I think, when I came as a freshman.
Yeah, and I think we just forget about it as seniors because we're so used to it, we don't care anymore. But people can really get beat down.
Really big part of my freshman and sophomore year.
Yeah, as well as like the nursing versus like pre-med like divide.
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
It is very interesting.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is like you have to know you want to do nursing like for yourself. And after being in the hospital, honestly, I see the doctors at work and I'm like, that was not for me. If you were like applying to college again, would you apply again to Penn Nursing, or what would you consider?
I think I would, because I don't think I can separate Penn Nursing with everybody I've met at Penn, or with Penn as a whole, and the relationships I've built at Penn. I think that I'm comfortable leaving Penn saying that I really liked it, and like I loved it, and like part of it is definitely Penn Nursing my clinical experiences and stuff like that. Part of it is also certainly the people I've met in and outside of nursing. So I don't think I can say like, oh, I wish I applied somewhere else, because that would mean that I haven't met the people I have, and I don't think to me that would be worth it.
Yeah. For me, like I think Penn's like dual degree program really stood out to me. But I do have to say, coming from California, like there are much cheaper nursing education. So I think both of us are very fortunate that our parents are willing to support us to come out here. But if I was in a different socioeconomic situation, I likely would have just gone to a school in California, which would just be cheaper. But my biggest takeaway for college in general is I'm so glad I got out of California and got to just come to a completely different environment and like really challenge myself. And I think I have a lot of friends in UCs. It's just very similar, to my high school vibes. So I think just coming somewhere completely new like really opened my eyes to this other side of America.
Like I don't think I would have not enjoyed myself at a UC for nursing. Yeah. I just think that I can't fully say with confidence that like I would rather have applied to somewhere else.
Yeah. But I think definitely like financial aid, like student loans, those are all very valid reasons, to consider where you go. And I believe, you can have a good experience anywhere. Okay, I kind of came up with like a list of questions to consider if you're considering nursing or like Penn. So I think number one is like, what is the college experience you're looking for? I think Penn being Penn, students here study a lot, and it can be a very stressful environment. And I'm sure nursing is hard like wherever you go, but I think just everyone at Penn grinding like compounds on each other.
It's very work hard, play hard.
Yeah. So if you don't feel like you like that environment, you like there are many other places where I believe people are happier or like just like have a better time in college, especially if they're not super studious. I think at Penn it can be a lot about like your identity and your career, and like there are some people who are like, my life's like mission is to become a nurse. It's their whole personality. Yeah. I don't think it's the same for both of us. No. So it can be hard if you don't like fit into that mold.
Or even like for other schools too, like nursing and outside nursing, everyone is like, my work is my life.
I'm meant to be a consultant.
Yeah. Or I'm meant to be whatever. Yeah.
And then I think another thing to consider is like where you're trying to work in the future. It's like, do you want just connections to that area? Kind of, it's nice for people who are trying to work in Philly. Is the cost worth it? I think at the end of the day, what's most important is like your RN degree. So just debating like your financial aid, like where is most affordable for you in your situation.
I don't know if you want to include this because I'm not on financial aid, but I do know that Penn can be quite generous with their financial aid, or like is quite generous, and that for certain people, Penn had given them the most financial aid out of all the schools they're applying for. So like, yes, Penn is very expensive, but I think that you can apply, you can get financial aid obviously, and then you can apply for like an increase. And then I also think that generally I would say Penn has pretty decent resources for Figley students, first-gen low income, and I think there's a good community for that as well. So it is very expensive, but I think that it is not that there is a lack of resources.
Yeah. And then if you get into Penn Nursing, how are you going to leverage the other opportunities at Penn as a whole? I think because it's very different. And it can be things like, taking minors or majors in other schools. Like, what you did education?
I'm an urban education minor, which was hard to fit in the nursing curriculum, but was one of my favorite decisions in undergrad, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. Like, maybe a nursing education is the same everywhere, but maybe what sets Penn Nursing apart is the other resources that you get from it, from the university. Like, like I think clinical is going to be the same no matter where you go. But maybe like your clinical instructors, your faculty, like I don't think even our sim labs are that truly state of the art.
Yeah.
But it's like maybe your like professors do have something to offer about the profession, because they're like very insightful. And then outside of nursing, what other resources are you going to take advantage of?
Yeah. Like I think like clubs, activities, like joining a sorority or fraternity, like interacting with the city. And I think even for both of us, like I think for me, like nursing has not been like what I'm gonna remember the most, you know? I think it's like I did this vlog channel, I learned Japanese, I had my church. Like nursing was just one small part of like the bigger picture. And I think that's, yeah, like that's one of the greatest parts, because you can do this like very professional schooling, you know, within the 4 years while still having like the fun undergrad experience. And it's very different for students who do like an advanced BSN after they graduate. That is like grinding.
That's all they do,
you know?
Yeah, I don't think that nursing was like, I don't think it was like my favorite part about Penn, or like my most memorable part about Penn, but I think it contributes to the memories.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. A lot of memories. Yeah. So what's like kind of your future? What do you think? Where do you think you're gonna go? Do you know, if you know?
I think I definitely want to work bedside for a couple years. I think that it's such a unique experience. I think bedside nursing is so cool. I really like the opportunity that you have to connect with patients. Admittedly, I'm a little bit worried about like staffing and burnout and just like the nursing field that I'm entering to. But I think that's definitely something I want to do. I was in the emergency department for clinical, which I loved. I really liked the people I worked with, I liked the pace, I liked the flow. So we'll see about that. I think long term, I don't want to be bedside forever. I ideally would like to work with like Asian American older adults. I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know what like a nursing role like that would look like, but those are like two populations I love, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for that in Philly, in California. There is definitely a need, because I don't know if you know this, but or like have experienced this, but I feel like having a provider that like looks like you or can speak the same language as you can be so comforting and like result in such better health outcomes. Like I think of my grandparents who like see a doctor who practices Western medicine but speaks Chinese, and they're so much more comfortable going to their doctor, like their primary care doctor. They're so much more comfortable like trusting him and like listening to the advice he gives, which I feel like contributes to like their longevity and better health outcomes, because of like now they finally have good primary care. And like our primary care system is already so bad, and like what happens when you add more layers to that. So I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I want to keep things really up in the air.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to decide, and I don't want to close myself off from anything by being so like I have to work as an NP or something like that. Yeah.
Like I think some people coming to Penn are like, I want to be a CRNA, you know, and it's like
everybody.
You plan out your life for that, but honestly things change, you know. School's not that fun. But yeah, so for me, I think I'm gonna be abroad next year, but I want to come back and do bedside nursing for a year, and then
a year.
Yeah, or a year or two before I go to Japan. But then honestly, I think they were like, yeah, like do you want to be a nurse for a mission team, you know, and help to do like the yearly checkups? And I was like, is this a full-time thing? And they're like, no, it's like just part of the year. And I was like, okay. Like I don't want to do it like full-time. But I think it's nice to have the skill. And I started to realize like the skill set you get, like people will text you randomly. It's like, am I okay? Like, do we need help? You know?
And you don't realize that you actually learned things until you like answer people's questions, and then like they Google it, and then they realize they realize that's exactly what you told them.
Yeah. So I think like just it's valuable to be a nurse, even for your family and friends. You know, being able just to be like a voice of reason. Yeah. But yeah, anything else to add?
No, I think it'd be cool if you worked as a nurse in Japan.
Yeah.
I think that's so unique.
Yeah, but I'm not working in like a hospital. It's like a...
I know, but still.
Yeah.
Like literally what you were just saying, like, you have to have the language, and like to know the jargon and stuff like that. Like, you have such an extra skill set to use abroad.
Or honestly, I was like, yeah, like I don't know, would be down, but I'd consider like, oh, go to a rural village in China, you know, and like be a like village nurse.
Primary care,
Yeah. So anyway, so it's like, yeah, you can definitely go the normal path, but also with nursing, you can take it so many other directions, which I think is just like the best part of it.
I think sometimes at Penn it's hard to remember that.
Yeah.
But I think like what you said, like if you do nursing for yourself and you find your passions and like, or your interest, not even your passions, or find your interests, then you'll be able to find ways to break out of the standard nursing path that it seems like everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
But it definitely can feel like everyone's doing the same thing, or like everyone's doing one thing that is like esteemed and stuff like that except you.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.